This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Africa in Perspective. My name is Stephen Imediegu, and as is our tradition, we take you across the continent of Africa, bringing you the latest stories from the continent and interesting conversations, as well as interesting facts about the African continent. This is Africa in Perspective. Welcome to this edition. We start off in Kenya, where a Kenyan court has ordered cult leader Paul Mackenzie and 30 associates to undergo mental health evaluations before being charged with the murder of 191 children whose bodies had been exhumed since last April from the Shakahola forest. During a hearing in the coastal town of Malindi on Wednesday, the court granted a prosecution request to conduct mental health assessments of the 31 defendants before they were formally charged and enter pleas in 2 weeks. The prosecutors say that they will charge 95 people in total on counts of murder, manslaughter, terrorism and torture. A lawyer for Mackenzie, who has been in custody since police started unearthing bodies in the forest, had said the self-styled pastor is cooperating with the investigations. Authorities say that Mackenzie, the head of the Good News International Church, ordered his followers in southeastern Kenya to starve themselves and their children to death so that they could go to heaven before the world ended.
Shaping the African narrative. This is Africa in Perspective.
A court in Turkey has convicted the son of Somalia's president for the death of a motorcycle courier, but commuted his sentence for 2.5 years in prison to a fine. Prosecutors also requested that Mohammed Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, the son of Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, be sentenced to up to 6 years in prison. On Tuesday, the Istanbul court fined him 27,300 Turkish lira, that's $900, according to state media. Mohammed was not present in court at the time. His driver's license was also revoked for 6 months. Mohammed was charged with causing death by negligence after a diplomatic car he was driving hit courier Yunus Emre Gosser in Istanbul on the 30th of November. An arrest warrant was issued for Mohammed after Gosser died 6 days later, but the president's son had already left Turkey on the 2nd of December.
Your window to Africa today. This is Africa in Perspective.
Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that his government will embark on massive education of youth as a way to tackle the increasing kidnappings in the West African nation. Deadly attacks, kidnappings for ransom have threatened the capital city along with the rest of the country's conflict-hit north. President Bola Tinubu won the elections last year after promising to rid Nigeria of its security crisis. However, deadly attacks, particularly in the north, have persisted. The capital city of Abuja recorded a spike in abductions along major roads and in homes in recent weeks. President Tinubu condemned the abductions as disturbing, ungodly and sinister, and touted education as the antidote to the troubles agitating the nation, according to a statement from presidential spokesman Ajuri Ngelale.
Bringing context to every story, helping you understand why and how it concerns you, taking you closer to stories in Africa, analyzing and prescribing to our shared continental problems. This is Africa in Perspective.
And still in Nigeria, Shell company has said that it is selling its onshore business in Nigeria's Niger Delta to a consortium of companies in a deal worth $2.4 billion. It's the latest move by the energy company to limit its exposure in Nigeria amid long-running complaints of environmental pollution caused by the oil industry. Shell called it a way to streamline its businesses in a country that it has operated in for decades, facing pushback after oil spills that have fouled rivers and farms and exacerbated tensions in a region that has faced years of militant violence. The buying company consortium is Renaissance, which consists of ND Western, Aradel Energy, First E&P, Walter Smith and Petrolin, Shell said. After an initial payment of $1.3 billion, the London-based energy giant said it would receive an additional $1.1 billion.
Shaping the African narrative. This is Africa in Perspective.
Our final news item on Africa in Perspective this week is from Zambia, where Zambia has commenced the administration of oral cholera vaccines. On Tuesday, authorities rolled out some doses in the Matero township, one of the affected shanty compounds of Lusaka, the country's capital, which was most affected by the current outbreak. The countrywide cholera outbreak has so far killed 363 people, 30% of whom were children under the age of 5, and sickened more than 9,500, according to health authorities. The outbreak started in early October of 2023 and had spread to most parts of the country, but the largest numbers of recorded cases are in the capital city of Lusaka. Authorities mobilized resources to contain the outbreak and opened a main treatment center at the Hero Stadium in the city. The outbreak also prompted the government to postpone the reopening of schools, which were meant to start on the 8th of January this year, as the country tries to battle the deadly waterborne disease.
Africans leading the way. People rich in culture and beauty. Everything you should know about your home. This is Africa in Perspective.
On Africa in Perspective this week, we turn our lenses, our eyes, our focus to Somalia, where a developing story has taken another turn. This is Africa in Perspective. Our conversation happens with Aliyu Dahiru Aliyu, the head of department of the Conflict Reporting Department at Human Angle, and he joins us in just a moment.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
You're welcome back into Africa in Perspective. As promised, today we look at Somalia and the Al-Shabab militancy that has taken a different turn in the country. Just to cast your minds back to where this began, Al-Shabab has been active in Somalia for quite a while, and its latest attacks, it has claimed responsibility for them. It has also pointed out that the attacks were not intended at the civilian populace, but instead targeted at local security officials. A week ago, Al-Shabab militants captured a United Nations helicopter carrying several foreigners across the country. 2 Somali men and several foreigners were on board at the time. The helicopter was carrying medical supplies and it was supposed to transport injured soldiers from the Galdudu region. This was information given by Major Hassan Ali when he was speaking to Reuters News. The helicopter encountered a defect shortly after taking off from Beledweyne city in central Somalia. The United Nations Assistance Mission in Somalia later confirmed that there had been an incident involving a UN-contracted helicopter that was conducting an air medical evacuation. Now, it said it was gathering information about what happened and that response efforts were underway. Shortly after, a suicide bomb killed 3 in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, and injured 2 others. Now, the Al-Qaeda-affiliated armed group Al-Shabab claimed responsibility for the attack, saying that it was targeted at local security officials. This morning, we're joined on the conversation by Mr. Aliyu Dahiru Aliyu. He is the head of the Conflict Reporting Department at Human Angle. Mr. Aliyu, good morning and thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Right, to jump right into it, Al-Shabaab has been very active in Somalia for years on end. This latest attack in the capital of Mogadishu has seen 3 people lose their lives, and Al-Shabaab has come out to say they were targeting local security forces. I wonder if this is an escalation of their efforts at destabilizing this country.
Okay, as you have just mentioned, Al-Shabaab has been destabilizing Somalia for quite a long time, more than 2 decades. And this attack is just part of the numerous attacks that they have been conducting across the country. So it's not new. They have been conducting these attacks, especially between Kenya, Somalia, and sometimes even in Uganda. So it's not something new. They have been doing this, and the attack didn't come as a surprise. As we know, the jihadis always target local security agents, and they always try to, send a shock or terror into the people, and that's the ultimate aim of their attack.
Right. Now, with these latest attacks, as we're talking about these latest attacks, a week before this happened, a UN helicopter crashed in Somalia as well. Al-Shabaab went on to take captive everyone in that particular helicopter. Has there been an update regarding rescue efforts for those who were taken hostage in this incident?
Okay, as you mentioned before, there have been rescue efforts. But the government has said that there have been rescue efforts. So it's kind of an obscure message. We can't say whether some people have now so far been rescued, but they promise that they are going to rescue them. But you know, there are... hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You know, there are some areas that are no-go area, even by the government, because they are stronghold of the Al-Shabaab. So if it is the area, then it will be really difficult for the government to rescue people from there. But if it is an area where the government has control over, then there is likelihood some people could be rescued. And the biggest problem with Al-Shabaab terrorism in Somalia is that they have support of some local people. Unlike Boko Haram in Nigeria or ISWAP in Nigeria, Al-Shabaab is using ethnic sentiment, not only religious sentiment, but ethnic sentiment in mobilizing people and getting support from them. So if it is in an area where the locals support Al-Shabaab, then it will be really difficult. And that's why Al-Shabaab has been conducting these wars, has been raising this terror in Somalia for quite a long time, and they have been more successful even than Boko Haram or any other African terrorist group that we know.
Now, the response of the United Nations has been typical, with mission after mission sent into this country. How would you rate the response of the United Nations, their efforts in destabilizing Al-Shabaab and returning Somalia to peace, if you'd like?
So, I always say that countering terrorism is not only kinetic approach. The kinetic approach is insufficient in countering terrorism. And as we see, the United Nations focus more than 80% of its activities are using kinetic efforts. You know, attacking them, dislocating them, you know, killing their commanders and something like that. But the issue, the biggest problem with extremist ideological, you know, extremism, or even the jihadism in general, is that this is something that is in the mind of the terror. And there are some youths who were born into these activities. Their parents joined the group, and they now born of this, so they know anything. They don't know anything apart from this extremist ideology. So using kinetic approach cannot eliminate extremism. There is for non-kinetic approaches, like, you know, trying to win heart and minds, trying to use radicalization effort, similar to the one that has been done in Northeast Nigeria, even though it's facing a lot of criticism, because I think the government hasn't communicated it the way it's supposed to be communicated. So this is the biggest problem. The United Nations effort is always using kinetic, getting soldiers from different countries, or even the different countries, and then coming to the Somalia and say, okay, let's vanquish these terrorists. Yeah, that one is working to some extent, but it cannot eliminate terrorism. That will be really difficult for it to eliminate terrorism and stabilize the country.
Mr. Aliyu, finally, there is the concern about the entire region with what has been happening in Somalia, and if you want to call it that, with the successes of Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Is there a concern that other extremist groups across the African continent will be emboldened to link up and continue to unleash terror on the people of Africa?
That has been doing. That's something that we are anticipating. That has been going on. We have seen the ISIS in Mozambique. It started from a political group and then evolved into a jihadi group. And we have seen attacks between, you know, Uganda, you know, Mozambique. And so in those East African countries, there are a lot of groups that are now emerging and waging attacks. Some of them are affiliated with Al-Qaeda, like Al-Shabaab, and some of them are affiliated with ISIS. So it's not something that we are facing the threat. We are already in the state. So these groups are already there, and we have seen ISCAP, which is closer also to the East Africa, Islamic State Central African Province. We have seen them, and we have seen even ISWAP in the West Africa. So it's not something that will happen. It's something that has been happening. So it's not even a threat. It's already a threat.
Well, Mr. Aliyu, thank you very much for speaking with us on this conversation.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And that is Mr. Aliyu, Dahiru Aliyu, the head of department at the Conflict Reporting Desk at Human Angle. And he joined us to speak about Al-Shabaab's efforts in destabilizing the government of Somalia.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.